One of the things that's fun when you start doing, well, for me when I started doing forms is I ended up, I mean, it was like a time travel thing to me to write in forms, inherited forms, and so I found myself writing with 17th century English puns like heart and dear. They're puns much beloved by the 17th century. See, I keep thinking of the things I'm supposed to say before the poem instead of after. Let me try to think of some things before here that you might want to know. So this is the new book, or as we say, 40 years later. And it consists of 3 lyric sequences. The first one is a kind of reimagining of Eden. And the project of being in Eden is imagined in part here as the project of learning language. It kind of fascinated me for a while to think that in our mythology, Adam and Eve were speaking words for the first time. It came into my mind that God was in favor of order and stasis. So he wanted them just to talk in terms of nouns, you know, nail the sucker down. And it came to my mind that they got actually excited about verbs, and then they got in trouble. And you know the rest of the story. So these are just 6 or 7 poems from that sequence, first sequence. This is the first poem in the sequence. To speak. And of course, you know from in Genesis and a book of John, there's God speaks the world into existence, and so I thought to speak. It hadn't occurred to God to use words. He'd simply thought the world into being, merely imagined those animals, that shrub. But he was proud of what he'd done. He didn't want to boast, but still he felt an urge. He cleared his throat and spoke. So, there's a part of the Genesis where where the animals and creatures are paraded past Adam, and he names them, gives them names, and also takes dominion over the world and all that kind of stuff through language. To noun, this is Adam having just recovered from the naming parade. To noun. Nouns were a giant confining. Adam felt the sounds he made build bars around the things he saw. It hurt and thrilled him to see how meekly each thing entered that cage. How snug it fit. How smug he felt. To verb. The beasts were beasting, the birds birding about. Everywhere Adam looked, he saw moving tokens of becoming's task. Clearly, their glory was spoken as motion. But to praise them, he needed more precise words. Floating, sniffing, gliding, drifting, burrowing, soaring, grunting, roaring. He'd poked among the shrubs and noted they were stable. Now he gazed at the birds flying wherever they whimmed. Maybe his tongue was a root, but weren't his verbs wings? Sometimes I get shamelessly interested in sort of puns and stuff because I got kind of obsessed with language. And so this is a little later. This is called to do. To do. God made a big to-do about their doing, and it's true. Those early days were festive. Given each deed they did was done for the first time, was essence. To boast, to sleep, to flirt, each verb had do upon it and was new. But then, you start doing verbs and you get into trouble. Trouble awaits. To choose. As you gathered, most of the titles in the sequence are like infinitive verbs, to choose, to do, to do. Things you forget to say. To choose. God planned a static planet with plants that bore no offspring, as if acts had no consequence. But Eve was there to change all that by choosing, to show Adam losing was illusion if you took it all inside you. The bright fruit, the garden's beauty, the day's delight, and the night scar, and the night sky with its stars. Show him how within you it would ripen and give birth to things beyond yourself and your imaginings. To embrace. There's some X-rated parts that I'm not going to read, but well, this is to embrace. With their embrace, they chose each other, which is to choose death and all that comes before it, sufferings and joys and infinite unintended harms. Large choice for such small arms. This is the last poem in the sequence. This might seem a little odd. Some of the action in here might seem a little odd to people who didn't grow up in the country. But tree limbs sometimes fall in forests and stuff. In fact, they're called widow makers. That's an old... Anybody ever hear that? That's cool. Widow makers. There we go. Anyway, to build. No longer could they rest each night inside God's breath, as in a tent that kept them from the cold. All this was new, was after Eden. No longer could they sleep beneath the trees, trusting branches not to break. It was a habitation they had to make. 4 walls and a roof, a place to live, a world inside the world.